To understand how inclusive cities are, not only connectivity on the city scale and between different parts of the city, both matter. Two additional qualities are important. First, the distribution of services, thus the presence of local mixed-use centers, and second, the mix of housing types, which facilitate different people to locate in an area. Let's first have a look at the local centers. The presence of local centers and their distribution within a city is an indication for how accessible essential goods and services are to all citizens. We can analyze this in two steps. First, we investigate functional mix on the city scale, identifying and mapping areas with a lower share of mix of functions. In most cities, the density of other functions than housing is reduced towards the edge of cities, mainly due to decreasing numbers of inhabitants. That is not necessarily negative yet. Therefore, in a second step, we look into the areas that have a lower share of mix. We can identify if there is a local mixed-use center present, since these are places of local opportunity, like here in Amsterdam New West. A local center is usually located along one of the main streets we identified in the first analysis, and it concentrates commercial and social functions. While spatial segregation and connectivity always set the base conditions for social segregation and inclusion, local mixed-use urban centers offer people places to meet and exchange, be economically active, but above all give access to foundational services and goods. The last point, where spatial design can contribute to the city scale to building inclusive cities, is a mix of housing types. This mix facilitates a diversity of inhabitants in terms of household composition, age, and alike. Some urban extensions or transformations are built in a very homogeneous way. If neighborhoods develop that are all based upon the same building type, it is probable that also very similar people will live in these buildings, which means a whole neighborhood is socially homogeneous. Taking a look again at the city map of Amsterdam, we can zoom into two neighborhoods that are spatially segregated through borders and understand how homogeneous they are in terms of housing types. This is the example of Overdomse Veld North and South, which has a very high density of inhabitants of about 16,000 per square kilometers in comparison to an average of about 5,000 per square kilometer in Amsterdam. The neighborhood shows predominantly apartment buildings, mostly built between 1970s and 2008. About 80% are rental apartments and in average are two-person households. The second example of New Sloten Northeast, with a density of about 7,000 inhabitants per square kilometers, is above the average of about 5,000 inhabitants per square kilometer in Amsterdam. The neighborhood shows predominantly terraced houses built in the 1990s. About 60% are rental homes, with an average of 2.5 persons households, which indicates more families with children. To build inclusive cities, neighborhoods should accommodate a mix of people that depends on the presence of diverse types of dwellings and other urban functions. The final analysis draws conclusions at the city scale. We can compare this information from the spatial maps we made earlier with the income map of the city. We can look at the income map of Amsterdam, identifying areas with lower income, and the map which shows connectivity and local centers. Bringing the two sets of information together, we see segregation by income and can identify lower income neighborhoods. Via the mapping of the main streets and borders, we understand if they are segregated on the city scale. We can check if the segregated areas have local centers, which gives the first idea if a place has local opportunities. This map allows us to draw conclusions on the state of inclusion and segregation of different urban districts and neighborhoods and can inform urban planners and designers where action is needed. The spatial description and enhancement of connecting lines, urban borders, local mixed-use centers, and the differentiation of housing types helps to build inclusive cities. These qualities and the introduced interventions are best considered when designing the urban plan for new districts or neighborhoods. It is clear that adjusting the built environment later can become cost-intensive and be hindered by a lack of affordable and suitable land for the relevant spatial transformations. Sometimes it's necessary to transform the built environment, and then the FOR analysis can help to find the right places for the interventions.